It's about to go down with Marc and Cathey, a live coaching show about dropping ideas. Marc and Cathey coach and have conversations with brilliant idea creators who are reimagining the world through the expression of their words, thoughts, and action.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of It's About to Go Down. I am Marc Williams.
And I'm Cathey Armillas, and we have with us Chad Phillips today. Chad has been a small business owner for over 18 years. He's also the co-founder. Marc, this is so cool. I bet you don't even know what this is. He's a co-founder of an organization called Circle Anywhere. And I had to write this down because it's a platform that helps with relational meditation, and he'll have to tell you more about that. It's really cool. But Chad has this idea, and this is it. Is everybody listening? Like, this is such a it's such an impactful idea. Here it is. What happens when you remove yourself from the trappings and comfortability of your modern home and you redecide how to survive? Whoa. Like, I can't wait to get into this. Chad, welcome to our show. Please tell us a little bit about that idea to get us going.
Sure. I'm thanks for inviting me on. First of all, I'm really excited to be here. I think the first thing that's helpful is to kind of put a context around the idea and to say that I'm not a subject matter expert in anything I'm going to talk about. I'm a person who's moderately handy, who has a great degree of determination. So I kind of think of this as either one big experiment or maybe a bunch of little experiments that's become one big experiment. And the experiment started in January of this year. I was living in Portland, Oregon, in a nice little comfy 500 square foot studio condo. The sort of the running bit that I had was I was 3 bubbles in. I'm in the US, which is a first world country. I'm in Portland, which is this progressive city. And I'm in a co-housing community in a condo, which is this sort of like progressive community living structure. So I was very bubbled up, and I was happy there. I was very grateful to have, felt very lucky to have that circumstance. But I was heading towards turning, I had just turned 50. And I think I was having whatever my version of a midlife crisis is. I could tell I was sort of asking myself the kinds of questions that are part of that stage of life, right? And I think in my life, I've often, it seems like always, it's not directly rebellious, but it's just, I want there to be some kind of unique experience coming out of me. So I didn't want to do the things that felt like, I didn't want to do a bunch of cliche behaviors because I was having a midlife crisis, buying a fast car, etc. So I just sort of put myself in the space where I was wanting to receive what was going to be like the next big thing that would power this phase of my life. And it came to me fairly intuitively. Like it was probably over a period of a day or two, I just got this idea of like, I'm going to go into the woods and I'm going to build and I'm going to film it and I'm going to show people what that's like. And I don't really know what I'm doing. So a lot of it is the adventure of somebody who's, because you go on YouTube, see a video and some dude has been doing it for 20 years and he's telling you how to do it, right? I'm not telling anybody how to do it because I don't know what I'm doing.
We're watching you figure out how to do it.
They're watching, right? But part of it is that it's like, these are the skill sets that you really need. It's like, you have to be really determined and not afraid to look bad or not afraid to fail. Like those are such the fundamental qualities, right? I mean, I can say, and we can get into a little more detail later with some of the specifics, but a lot of what I did it's far from rocket science. It's a bunch of different basic survival stuff that was, for me, it was very stressful just because it was the first time I've ever done it. And I'm a sort of a type A perfectionist. I want to get it just right. But now looking back, it's not, a lot of it's not that hard. It's just, there was just a lot of it. I packed a lot into 7 months, but each individual step is fairly simple. And there's simple things you can do, I'm learning, to be able to provide for your basic needs without a modern home, right? So not a subject matter expert, experiment, which then comes, then we start to kind of get into the idea, which, you kind of captured a big part of it. Like, what is it like to redecide how to survive, right?
Chad, can you tell us some of the things like what are some of those modern day things that create the abstracts that you talk about? You talk about some of this being an abstract.
Right. Well, so I mentioned to you guys earlier, I was working on a blog post just this morning. And in it, towards the end, I'm kind of was pointing to the movie The Matrix, which I don't think I'm going to spoil it for anybody at this point. I've probably seen it by now. But there's a really like iconic scene where the protagonist Neo wakes up and he's like in this liquid like container and he's got tubes all plugged into him, and he kind of wakes up to the fact that he's been unconscious, and all of his life, like all the things that were supporting his real life were just being pumped into him through these tubes, right? And so one of the things I've kind of become more clear on is that I underwent a similar, like not in conceptually a similar kind of thing, where I realized that the tubes, I had tubes plugged in too. They just weren't plugged into my body. They were plugged into my condo. And what I mean by that is there's water, there's, sewage, there's electricity, there's some kind of heating system. Like all these things are just hooked to your unit, right? And you get them and you get as much as you want. I'm going to I don't remember the name of the book I was reading at all, but way back in the beginning, I was reading a book about home building. And this person was talking about how way back in the day, when a house was built, there was all of this consideration about the environment that it was being built in, like the materials that you would get for the home would be materials from the land, and you would build it based upon the environment. And so the building could come out vastly different based upon whether you were in, on the border of the Arctic Circle or in South America, right? Like they would be wildly different. And that's changed in modern times to what he kind of referred to it as like a spaceship model, where you have this module, and this module has these standard hookups, and you just drop it anywhere. And you hook up your quote unquote life support to it, and now you have a home, right? Which in a certain way is amazing. I mean, with a spaceship, you can go anywhere, right? And everything's the same. That's kind of the part of what I was pointing at when I think about abstractions. That's part of what I'm thinking of, is it provides this convenience where everything's sort of standardized, so everybody has a common experience, which is wonderful, right? So there's lots of advantages to it. That's why human beings have done that. Abstractions have massive advantages. But I began to also ask myself the question, what are those abstractions costing me, right? So let's take the example of heat, right? I think that's a pretty good example. So if you have, we'll start with a question. So let's suppose you guys want to raise the heat in your house, and you're not going to do it. You're not going to put clothes on. You're going to actually raise the temperature. Like, what do you do? What do you guys do?
Press the button.
Press a button. Or if you're old school, you got a little dial, you turn it, right? Okay, so think about that device, and now take that and just stick it on a wall somewhere and don't hook it up to anything. If you did the same behavior, you turn it or you push a button, would you expect the temperature to change? No. So in some sense, you're not interacting directly with the thing that makes your house warmer, right? And that's kind of what I mean by an abstraction or an interface. It's something that simplifies and kind of hides the real thing that's going on that creates the change, right? And there are lots of advantages to abstractions. You probably can walk into any house in this country for sure and figure out how to turn the temperature up, right? Because it's standard, right? It's you can push a button up or down, you dial the thing. It's pretty, you can turn on water. You can go to any, now excepting some of the hotel rooms I've been in where I'm like, how do you turn the water on this faucet? But generally speaking,
Fancy faucet.
you can operate water because they've been standardized. So that's a huge advantage, right? And it's also very convenient. I turn a faucet or I dial this. I was thinking about this the other day. So you do this motion and it gets warmer and it gets to the exact temperature that you want. And it stays there as long as you want. That's a miracle. Like,
yeah.
If you told somebody 500 years ago they could do that, they'd be like, you're magic. You're just talking about magic, right? But it's not. Now it's just like normal, right? It's not magic anymore. And so there are massive advantages. And the question I'm asking myself is, what is the cost? It's oftentimes easy, I think, when you see the society evolving, new technology coming out, that you see the things that are good about it. But there's also, everything's a trade-off, right? And so what is all dealing in all of this abstraction and convenience and comfort costing us, right? And one of the things I contend is, well, I'll ask another question. Are you familiar with this idea of like, it's fundamentally different experience to describe what an apple tastes like versus like picking up an apple and eating it, right? That seems like a fairly common, like it's kind of a thing that's one of the sort of classic 101 personal development things, right? There's this whole different thing with direct experience, right? And so I've kind of taken that same concept and I'm applying it to like basic resources of survival, you know? So go back to the heat example. This is not making your house warmer, right? But it's an indirect way that you control it, but it's not exactly what's happening. When I heat my place now, I pick up the wood. I feel the weight of it in my hands. I feel the density of it. I can feel there's energy in there, basically, right? I feel the vibration of the axe as I split it. When I put it in the fireplace, I see it light on fire. I feel the heat directly on my body. And then maybe most importantly, I can see that resource being spent. Like I see the log going and burning up into ashes. I know directly that it is a temporary, limited resource that I have to replenish. Whereas opposed to in a modern house, when you do this, I don't think most people, I didn't have any awareness like a resource is being spent. It's just like, that should just be that way forever. I just do that and it goes exactly the way I want it. And it stays that way for weeks on end. I don't think about it. Same thing with water. Turn the faucet, water magically comes out as much as you want, right? Yeah. So the more, so there is, to me, there's this analogy of this idea of like somebody describing eating an apple versus eating one. It's similar to this idea of like, there's this conceptual way of like how you get warm. And there's this direct bodily experience that I'm having of heating my place. It's a much more intense, intense is one way to put it, complex, nuanced, impactful would be another word I would think of, experience that loads into my body than the idea of getting my house warmer by turning a knob. Am I making sense?
You are, Chad.
Much richer experience. Like there's more work, but that's the cost, right? The cost is more work, but the benefit is this hugely more rich experience. I have a relationship with my stove. Like we don't go on dates or anything, but I mean, I tend my stove and it tends to my need for heat. It almost feels vulnerable to say it. Like it is this really, there's a little bit of kind of an odd kind of intimacy there. It's like maybe like the kind where when you're a sailor, you develop an intimacy with your ship or whatever, that kind of thing. Like it's got that kind of flavor to it, you know? And I don't know about you, but I don't ever remember having that kind of relationship with my furnace.
With your heater.
You know? And I didn't expect that. Like I expected some things to happen, but when that happened, I was like, what the hell? This feels amazing, but like didn't see that one coming. You know, I will literally wake up. The air temperature in my place will drop 15 degrees and I'll be dead asleep and I'll wake up and go, oh, I got to put a log on the fire. Like my body is that unconsciously attuned to my stove now. It's just so cool to be able to have that level of connectedness.
You know, I'm going to speak to you, Chad, as not as the guy who, when I was a teenager, went on a 3-day hike on the Appalachian Trails, right? And had to dig holes and all that stuff. Right. I'm going to speak to you, Chad, as a concrete jungle growing up in a Brooklyn house
right.
where I could press the buttons, where I'm like, thank goodness it's not cold in this house anymore, right? Talk to me about, and talk to everybody about, right? Like it's one thing to hear you, right, on this one. And I'm thinking, all right, this is great. This guy, Chad, has roughed it and he's going out in the woods and he's recording it and I can watch it and I can learn about being connected and I can learn about, you know, how my resources are being used up. But I'm glad he's doing it. I hope he's not asking me to do it, right?
Right.
But on some level, you are asking us, maybe not necessarily to move out of the condo and move into, you know, a yome in Maine. but you are asking us to do something. So
Yep.
could you tell
Agreed.
us a little bit more about exactly what is it that you're asking us to do? So I'm not
100%.
moving to the Yom in Maine, right? I'm
Yeah,
not
right.
moving to
No, I get it.
I'm not
I
ready
get
yet.
it.
Kids won't let me do it, Chad.
I have an answer to your question. I feel very excited.
Go for it.
Almost feels like that thing in volleyball where you've like set me and I'm ready to spike it, you know?
Bump, set, spike kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So the first thing I want to say is that I've believed for a long time there is a difference between sort of like a fundamental message and the vehicle for the message. So I think of the fact that I'm in the woods roughing it, filming it. That's my vehicle, right? That is the thing that it's almost like it's kind of like a calling card. Does that make sense? It's like, it's something, it's like, what he's doing, what, you know, and it piques people's interests and it gets the initial engagement, but it's not really the fundamental message, right? It's just the thing that I can deliver the fundamental message through. It's like they kind of work together, I think, right? Like with no vehicle, it's hard to deliver the message, but with only a vehicle, it's empty, right? So the vehicle is this sort of, like, I can't remember if I said this before, but the modus operandi when I got there was I wanted to get as close as possible to making decisions about basic survival as possible, right? And so and that had to operate within my skill set. So as an example, if you put me naked in the woods with a knife in Maine, I would die. Okay. Like there are people I think that are that capable, but it isn't me. Okay. As I said before, I'm moderately handy, you know, and I
would die faster. I just want to put it out there. I would die before you, Chad. So.
All of us would die pretty quickly.
Pretty quickly. I'd be the first.
Oh, it's a contest now.
Just saying, I'm good at some things. I'm great at that.
Where was I? Oh yeah. So I found a challenge zone, right? Like I picked things that would be hard, but not impossible. Is how I would say it, right? And that's kind of what makes the calling card, is like it's clear that I'm facing some challenge, right? And I'm also, it kind of leads into what I think the message is. This is where the vehicle points to the message. So, and I got to draw another draw from another thing that I think is common in our culture. You guys have heard of this idea, I'm guessing. Tell me if you haven't. That evolutionarily speaking, our desire for things like sugar and salt are baked deep into our desires because there was a time when those were really valuable resources. And so deep in our biology, if we see a fatty thing, it's calories, it's going to be good for me, right? And so now that we can basically have as much sugar and salt as we want anytime that we want, that biological, deeply embedded evolutionary biological mechanism has more than started. It's very actively working against us, right? It's like you cross over. If you think of like vitality as a curve and you're going up, I'm getting more salt and sugar because it's this necessary resource. Then at some point you peak, like you're getting enough, right? And you keep going and you're going down the other side. You're getting less and less vital. You're making yourself sick. Okay. So my message that I'm, this is still, as I said, this is an experiment. So this is part of why I'm excited to kind of get you guys feedback. But I have this theory that works similar as sugar and salt to, and it's around kind of, I might call it just comfort and convenience. Probably comfort is more of a better general term. So my theory is that similar to the way sugar and salt worked, seeking comfort was a deep evolutionary drive because life was really hard. Like for most of human history, it was really hard. And I've peeled back just enough layers in my experience out there to like begin to get a bodily sense of how hard it is. Like I'm out there chopping trees and cutting them with a chainsaw. I'm like, this is really hard work. And I have a chainsaw, right? I have boots on. Like how in the hell did human beings like naked out there walking around? Like, how did they do it? Like, it blows my mind. But what I do know, I don't know how they did it, but what I do know is it had to be really hard because it was pretty hard for me to do it. And I have all these modern conveniences, even though I'm roughing it, right? And so if you think about how hard it could have been, I think it's easy to imagine that biological drive to make things more and more comfortable, less harsh, could be deeply baked into ourselves. And similar to the way that curve is for sugar and salt, we kept getting better and better at being able to provide comfort and convenience for ourselves. And somewhere there's a peak, right? Somewhere there's a place where another drop of comfort and convenience actually doesn't increase your vitality, it decreases it. And so that's the fundamental message that I'm driving for, is pay attention to that, to where that happens. Look for things like interfaces and abstractions that are removing you from your direct connection with life, that are probably also removing you from some discomfort and complexity in work. Know that there's a benefit and a cost to that. And if you're getting too much of that, and then you're probably headed down the other side. I firmly believe in proactive discomfort. I guess is that if I was ever going to teach a class, it would be on something I would call proactive discomfort. Like, don't wait for life to make you uncomfortable. Just go right at it. Do it on purpose. That's what yoga is for me. And anytime I've ever done it, it's like an hour 3 times a week that I suffer. And every single time, and like the other 23 hours a day of every day or whatever, I feel the vitality of it. Like it's a choice to do something uncomfortable because it produces vitality.
Produces something greater than the discomfort that you have.
Yeah. You will not achieve your greatest vitality by always seeking comfort. Maybe that's another kind of way to put it, right?
Yeah.
That's an illusion. Like you have to be somewhere, you have to be challenged or uncomfortable, or some kind of like healthy level of stress. Like to me, those are absolutely essential items for vitality. And for me to live, I should keep it personal. For me to live my best life, I have to have some discomfort or challenge. It doesn't have to be overwhelming, but it has to be something.
I first of all, I just geeked out over the term proactive discomfort.
I love that.
Me too.
That was great. I don't know if that's something you've always said.
No, I think I trademarked it. I think it's mine. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, wow. That was great. Because at first I was writing down the challenge zone. I wrote the comfort curve. I was writing all these different things. Productive discomfort. And the idea that
proactive discomfort.
What did I say?
Productive.
Productive.
Either one probably would work.
No,
but it's just, it works too.
I like proactive discomfort.
Yeah.
That was really helpful because, and the reason why I asked you that question earlier is, listen, this could really come down to simply moving out of a home into a yome, right? And for everybody who doesn't know, if I keep saying yome, that's because it's a brand new word I just learned.
I'm really happy you're remembering it. Most people are like, "What is that place you live in?"
A yurt plus dome.
A
equals
dome
yome.
plus
I
a
love
yurt
it.
is a yome. Yes,
A yome.
But the reason why I asked that is because we started out so far with removing yourself from the trappings of a home,
right?
But proactive discomfort is so much more than just moving from a condo to a yome, right?
There will be people that could do what I am doing, but it's clear not everybody will. But I love the idea of finding the common message, which I think is what you're pointing to right now, right?
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
Well, it's like, I mean, of course, the easy analogies are like anybody who trains for anything, or if you lift weights, it's super uncomfortable, you're sore, but you are creating a base for your body that will help you age better. And, we had Bo on I can even, I can see if Bo's watching right now, which I know he watches a lot of our episodes, he would probably violently agree with that. It's like you're creating a little bit of discomfort for something that's going to pay off. It also reminds me, just really quick, because I want to throw this in here, because when I start thinking about a message, and one of the things that we unfortunately have in our modern day society is we have access to so much information and ideas, and it's just every once in a while an idea really sticks with us. And so that's why Marc and I are always trying to work with people and be like, okay, that's a good idea. On the surface, that sounds like a great idea, but how can you really make it stick for people? Well, I'll tell you, for me, I was watching a video a couple of years ago. I have a really good friend of mine named Rajiv, and he's been on a plant-based diet for a really long time. And he sent me this link to this video. And of course it was like, this guy was talking about like a lot of people like bacon. And he's like, if a pig walked into this room right now and you saw the pig and you became familiar with the pig and you knew the pig, and then you wanted some bacon, and you would have to go through all the acts that would happen in order for you to have bacon, which, by the way, is so many more than you think. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so much more than you think.
Well, that's the abstraction, right?
Right. It's
cut bacon on a grocery shelf. It's all behind that, right? Yeah.
So I'm wondering, and I fell in love with this too, Mark, when he said proactive discomfort. I was like, this thing that I said at the beginning, the whole thing of like, what happens when you remove yourself from the trappings and comfortability, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's this long thing, but it's like, actually your idea, Chad, falls somewhere into like, how do you practice proactive discomfort to be actually more, there's so many more benefits from it, being attuned, being aware, being connected. I love the story of you being intimately connected to your stove. Like, and I felt that. Like, it's funny, but I felt it too. Like, it reminds me of, what movie was it with Tom Hanks, where he had the
Wilson,
Castaway, right? He became intimately connected to what he called Wilson, which was the ball. And
I don't talk to my stove. We gotta clear that up right now. Not yet, anyways. Not yet. Maybe in February, right? I'll start talking to it.
Hasn't been long enough yet. Yeah.
Not long enough.
No, but right. So it's just, I think we need to get people in a space to kind of, I feel like it's doing some kind of, every single person lives a little bit differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mark lives a little bit differently. We have comforts in Portland, Oregon that he might not have because of the density of the population in New York. So there's things that you have, and then there's things you have access to, Mark, that I don't, because I can't walk outside in a grocery store a block away either. I have to get in my car. So what if we did, what if it was getting people to do some sort of like tally of the things that they, that they do that feel comfortable? That would be, that they have comfort in. But what are the ones that could cause the biggest change on the other side? It's kind of what I was thinking. Like, because there's a million of them, and you don't, like, maybe not everybody wants to do the Chad thing, which is where you get in your car and you drive to Maine and you're out in the middle of the woods. But
yeah, I admittedly did it in a way that, there's, when you homestead, like, which is basically what I'm doing, that there's a much gentler way to, I didn't mention this before, but I decided this was on purpose. I spent the first 5.5 months sleeping in my car until I actually got my first place up. It was an act of discipline. Like it was this idea of like, I'm moving from a 500 square foot studio condo and I'm moving into a 265 square foot building. That's sort of down comparison, right? So the idea was, I'm going to sleep in my car for a while to kind of set my expectations even lower than that, so that when I move in, it's going to feel like a palace, which is exactly what happened. Like it took about 3 months or something for my car to feel like, well, this is life now. This is normal, right? And then when I moved into the home, it was just like, this is amazing. Like, I have a shelf to set stuff on, and I have a sink. Oh my God.
Composting toilet. This is life.
Yeah. Yep. But it's cool to know. That sort of speaks to like the neuroplasticity, which is part of what I think.
Yeah.
It's part of the advantage when you can do something like proactive discomfort, is it allows you to reset yourself. Like, I literally, in 5 months, I completely reset my lived expectations, so that when I had the newest little thing, I'm like, oh my God, this is just the greatest thing ever. If you had given me a shelf in Portland, I'd have been like, I got these already. Right. But I swear to you, I was like giddy when I had my first shelf. It was just, imagine, but I'm telling you, that's what happened, because I had no level hard surface to set things on for 5 months,
Yeah.
So wow. So that's one of the advantages of being able to make yourself uncomfortable for a while, is you can I actually reset. It was way cool.
Yeah.
Chad,
Mark,
I want to go ahead. No, go ahead, Cathey. Go ahead.
No, Mark, I want to get your take on it. But don't you feel like it's like, in order for his idea to really connect with people, it's like, I imagine you having your dinner conversation with your kids, and, what would be the one thing that what comfort thing could you remove or adjust in their life that would make the biggest impact? Like, because maybe it's just, figuring out that one thing. I don't know. And I feel like it's one of those things, Chad, tell me if I'm wrong. You probably get a little bit of addicted to it. Like not addicted, but you get used to that feeling of like, wow, I'm really getting my own heat now. I have to, I have to take a shower with limited water. I can see how much water's left. The water doesn't just keep coming out of this thing. Right. I can actually see how much water is left. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, I kind of think of like the human ego can find meaning in any behavior, so if you're denying yourself something, it can be cool to deny yourself something, kind of, is how I would say it. Yeah.
That's
Cathey set it up. Cathey already set it up. So Chad, you should know, quite often after we have these conversations, I'll sit at the dinner table and I'll start talking about these ideas. So just so you know, we are going to be talking about proactive discomfort today in the Williams home, right? And yes, I'm curious. If I ask my youngest to, I'm trying to think of it. Is it a matter of giving up something, or is it a matter of learning how to do something the rough way? We roughing it, right? The rough way. It's almost like, all right, we could go to the store and buy something to eat, right? But on a simple tone, right? What would it mean to make something from scratch, right?
You eat the apple. It's just more eating apples. Eat more apples. If I was going to be like,
eat more apples,
just eat. Don't talk about apples. You got to eat apples as much as you can, or more. Just eat more apples. Yeah.
Or you know what? It's so easy. Talk about New York. It's so easy to hop on the bus, the subway, get an Uber. What if you had to walk to school?
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not talking 2 or 3 blocks. I'm talking the 2 miles that it takes to get there. Right. What level of appreciation of that? But I wanted to ask something else, Chad. You said to make yourself uncomfortable for a while. So I'm wondering.
That's how I reset my expectations, right? I mean, I'm really glad that you said that, because as you were talking about, like, I'm just having this image of like they're sitting around the dinner table talking, and then there's like one thing they do, and I'm like, oh, it feels like a bit anticlimactic, right? So I do think it needs to be some degree of length or intensity that creates an impact. Like, it has to create some impact, right? And the other thing it reminded me of is this idea of like embracing discomfort. I feel like discomfort has a similar adaptive quality as something like vulnerability does. So in other words, if I know when I feel vulnerable to share something or whatever, but I can feel that like wanting to hide or something. And then after I share it, like I feel a little more free. Well, if I shared that same thing again, I wouldn't be vulnerable. Like because my system adjusts, right? And so you're being vulnerable when you feel, I should probably put it in my own terms. I know I'm being vulnerable when I can feel that desire to protect myself from revealing myself. It's not the content, it's that, I'm in the space where I'm protecting myself. So I think discomfort has a similar flavor, where when you do something that's uncomfortable, eventually you get used to it. Like I've been taking outdoor cold showers for 6 months now. It was 37 degrees today. My water was 60 degrees. It was fine. It was invigorating. Right.
That's a good word.
I got there to where it's not like, it's barely uncomfortable anymore, honestly. Like, I don't think there's much challenge left, but I got there because I did it over and over again, and I adapted. My system adapted so that I became more resilient or stronger, or whatever word that you want to use. And so that's no longer a place where I can seek the same kind of proactive discomfort, because my system
became more comfortable with the discomfort, I would say.
Yeah. But in a similar way to vulnerability, like there's that sense of wanting to protect. Discomfort has some kind of same flavor, where you're like, oh, I don't like that feeling, and I don't get that much around the showers anymore. So I would need to do something if I wanted
to go further than that.
I would need to go further. Not that I have to, but I'm just saying, I think it points to what it means to engage proactive discomfort. It's actually not really an objective thing. It's a subjective. You recognize when you're in the zone of your own personal experience that you want to retract, that you're feeling some kind of pulling back or whatever the flavor of that is for you. And I think that changes as you adapt and get stronger. So it's not a fixed target, right? It's a moving target.
I see this being a discomfort challenge. There's 30 days of like, right? I mean, that could be a really
I have
cool
one for
thing.
you if you want one.
You have what? What do you have?
Go for it.
Yeah.
All right. I'm reflecting I'm feeling a little fear, honestly, right now. Maybe I'm just gonna go for it. Yeah.
I know, me three.
So I'm gonna say like this actually has a fairly practical application, which is, well, so the question is, do you know how much water that you use by flushing your toilet? Just you individually in a year. Any guesses?
Not even a day.
Right.
I'm trying to think of
150,000 gallons a year.
That's way high.
That's a lot. I'm gonna take a guess. 26.
He was way high.
I'm gonna say between 800 and 1,000 gallons.
6,600 gallons is what I've seen from multiple sources. That's one person using a flush toilet, however often they do for a year. It's a lot of water, right?
Yeah, that's why, because I'm in a house with 5. That's why my number was so high.
Right.
His number was actually correct.
But I'm pointing to that piece of data because it gives you an idea of like something could change better for the world, right? Like we could use a lot less clean water if people didn't use flush toilets. And so the challenge I have is, can you go a month? You were saying 30 days. Can you go 30 days without using any of the regular modern toilets in your house? And I don't mean hold it and go to the store. I mean, find a way to pee
go
and
in the woods
in your house without using your toilet. And I can give you some help if you want it. Like if you're like, maybe I might try that challenge.
What? Yeah, give us some. I'm scared right now. So
you got.
Wait, but we should unpack this a little bit. Like, I want to know what's happening.
I'm more scared for Marc than me too.
Discomfort. Let's explore it a little.
Marc, I live close to the woods. I'm a little bit more scared for you, by the way.
What's my discomfort?
Okay, hit us with it, Chad. Hit us with it. Tell us.
Yeah.
And I should preface this by saying this is basically what you would do. You should like do a little more research, and I don't know about building codes or whatever, right? But I'll tell you basically what I did, and it's not hard. You build a box 5 by 5 by 5 ish. Leave the top and the bottom open. Okay, that's your compost bin. You throw about 18 inches of leaves or whatever in the bottom as like a base. And then you put hay on on top of that. Okay. So you've got leaves and stuff, maybe a foot of straw. Okay. Then you get a bucket. You put a lid on it. You can buy these things. They're called reluggable loos. It's literally a 5-gallon bucket with a toilet seat on it. You get some sawdust or peat moss. You do your business in the bucket. You cover that with enough sawdust or peat moss so that you've cut off the oxygen supply for that particular episode, right? Basically, you just want to make enough cover on each layer that you cut off the oxygen supply so it doesn't stink, right? And you just build it like it's sort of like a weird kind of cake, right? You've got your organic matter and then your business and then your organic matter, and you just go in layers until the bucket's full, 3/4 full probably. When that's done, you dump it in the compost bin, you move the hay and you dump it in the compost bin and cover it back up with the hay. That's it. That's what I do.
So you're basically making a bigger layer cake out in the compost bin, right?
Yeah, yes. Well, that becomes a little more mixed up. The layering is meant to keep the smell down, and I think it also gives you like a biological diversity between the two. The compost is more like I like thinking of it like uranium. Like there's a critical mass when you get enough compost, then it becomes active. It's like it actually becomes hot. It's a composting process. You can stick a thermometer in it, and it's like whatever it is, 120 or some degrees. Even in the winter, sometimes it can be warm. So it's this biologically active process that breaks down and eventually becomes fertilizer. Like you could, with your own with your own business after, a year or two, if you manage it properly, could put that right on your garden and cook with it again, and grow with it again. But instead, there's 6,600 gallons of water and your stuff magically vanishing, right, to some place where you have no idea. Let's not forget the fact that gets processed and comes back out of your faucet again. Sorry if anybody doesn't know that, but that's what happens. It goes to the water treatment plant and they whatever they do.
Yeah,
and
they filter. Yeah.
And you're drinking it.
You're doing it anyways. It's just become an abstract. It's just become abstract.
It's all magically taken care of for you. Yeah. But I mean, like the raw way of saying it is deal with your own pee and poop for a month. Like that's uncomfortable for most people.
I don't know if I can speak for you, Mark, but I'm gonna say we need a smaller challenge to start off with.
I was gonna say that. Yes, I'm gonna concur with you on that. You went from like level 1 to level 100 on the
great though, but that's
challenge zone.
We
it.
Test for the range, right? We test for the range.
You test for the range.
And honestly, you would need some woods or stuff. Like Mark, you'd be rough. The whole compost bin part would be pretty not easy in New York, that's for sure. I have 10 acres of land, so I've got plenty of spots to put that kind of thing.
Oh yeah, we'd probably be evicted from our building.
Day 2.
But the story you would have. Oh, what a great story.
Oh man. Well, what about this though? What if there was I was thinking about just little things and they all have their levels to them. Like I was thinking about, my mom's side of the family, 100% Italian. I remember my Nana, who was my actual great grandmother, right? By the time she'd passed away, she was like 4'1", and she'd sit there and make her own raviolis. And now if I think about making my own pasta, I'm like, oh. But even if we did, even if you were like, oh, we're going to have spaghetti tonight. And Mark, you told the kids, you're telling Sydney and Jordan and Dylan, you're like, hey, we're going to make our own pasta, which might be kind of fun. But even going down to the level of, but you have the flour, like you didn't have to go mill that flour from plants and whatnot. So I think there's a lot of layers, but Chad, how could we, I love the apple one, for instance. I wonder if there's a discomfort challenge that you could come up with or that people could create on their own, where they started thinking about things where they could start to move their own needle and see the effects of it.
Right.
Like, okay, I'm going to eat an apple today instead of a ding dong, right? Because the ding dong has been processed and has sugar and fat and other.
We'll probably have to workshop this a little bit, but I want to say something that feels personally important to me. I obviously this may not apply equally to every human. And what's coming up for me is it was very important to me to pick a good range of challenge for myself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a difference between doing something that's a little uncomfortable and doing something that's impossible. And somewhere in the middle, there is where it's like the one I feel like is really where the sweet spot is for me personally is it's hard, but it's not impossible. Right. So it's not like a little flavor of discomfort. Like you get what I'm saying? It's like, there's something, this is a little bit uncomfortable. Like my nose is itchy and I'm not going to scratch it versus if this gets any harder, I might be overwhelmed. Like there is a very big qualitative difference between those two things.
Totally.
Right? So I guess I'm taking a bold step and advocating for feeling a level of discomfort where it's not overwhelming. It's not like you're going to die or anything, but you feel a real challenge, right? It's a level where you feel in an actual challenge zone. Not where it's like, oh, that's a little hard. I don't want to do that again. Yeah.
I don't know if this is on that level, right? But I think about, having a family here in New York, we've got a car, and what if for, X number of days, X number of weeks, we did not use that car to go anywhere, right? We had to go to the market. We had to carry the groceries. It almost reminds me of how, they put this whole thing on, about plastic bags and things like that. And I've gone into the supermarket and I'm like, no, I won't take a bag. What does that actually mean that I'm now carrying, right? Because now I'm not necessarily getting the Oreos and all those other things. I only have so many arms that I have to carry. you know,
Right.
so without the car, without the bags, like, you know, what could we do without? I would tell you, I don't know if my family's up for it,
Mm.
but that would probably be a big proactive discomfort.
Right. Well, and you're
life.
pinging me on that sort of direct physical experience. You're carrying something 2 miles. You're feeling the weight of it that entire time. Your body is getting information from that experience the entire time, you know, and that when I first got here and I was contemplating this digging a well thing, I was going to hand dig my own well. I hauled water. I actually still am hauling water from my neighbor's well. And that first time I did it, I had to carry. I literally picked up 5-gallon buckets and carried them like 1,000 feet. And by the end, there was a couple. One was like, well, I don't want to do that again, because that was like my hands were going to get torn off because the water was so heavy and I walked so long. But the entire way I was loading in information. This is what water. This is what this resource feels like, right? This is how. And I would, if I had to, I would carry it because I needed to survive. And this is what it would feel like to do that. You know, so it's just, it loads in all kinds of information that I don't think you get the same kind if you're not doing something that directly is impacting your body. At least for me, like it's such a more powerful experience, you know.
And that's 10 gallons. Like that probably, like, I don't know the numbers on this, but that's probably one flush.
80,
I don't know, like.
Yeah, it's like 80. It was 80 some pounds, if I remember correctly, 88 pounds of water. But
Chad,
doesn't, I mean, in the modern house, that wouldn't last at all.
Yeah.
I'm sure you
yeah.
easily use more than 10 gallons a day. I use 10 gallons in a month right now. Like I'm really, because I have to, I haul it in a cart now, but I haul it, right? And so when I wash a dish, I'm like, what is the least amount of water I can use to wash this dish?
Yeah.
It is a precious resource because of how I'm engaged with it. And, you know, when I'm hauling it, there are moments where I'm like, this sucks. I'll be honest with you. It's not all mean, right? Like it is, but it's very similar to the yoga thing I said earlier. It's like this small period where I have to haul it, where it's like, this is uncomfortable. But there's this very large period where I have this much more, same thing, like this intimate relationship with it. It's like, wow, I need this to live. And I'm going to be very like attentive to how I use it.
How are you better because of it? Are you healthier? Are you stronger? Are you going to live longer? And I know you started this off by saying, listen, I'm not the expert. I'm experimenting, but I'm curious. You must be
I love you challenging with that question. How am I better? Well, am I healthier? I'm definitely emotionally healthier in many ways. I just feel more connected. Like in that sense, it feels healthier. I have beat up my body a little bit, but I think that was more because of my pace than what I did. I mean, when I arrived, I had a stump filled clearing and now I have a home and I did it in 7 months. It was a bit fast, right? So I kind of beat myself up a little bit. So how else? I mean, the connection piece is a big deal. I'm not sure if I can overstate that, you know. Then there's just a much more embodied understanding of these things are precious resources, which feels important to me in sort of the communal sense, right? Like I just value heat and water in a way that I didn't before because I had to suffer a little bit to get it, you know?
Let me take Mark's question and go a little bit bigger with it, because, you know, if you were giving this as a TED Talk, Chad, one of the things that, you know, we would be asking you is, how will this idea change the lives of other people, right? That's ultimately the end game of a talk like that.
Right.
It's not, sometimes people misinterpret what a TED Talk is. And sometimes people think, oh, it's just somebody that did something really cool. Like you're just listening to what they did, because that alone is very fascinating what you did. I mean, I'm following you on Instagram and watching your videos, and it's super fascinating. So that piece is easy. But then it's like, how do you translate that to the bigger, you know, to a larger? And so what I would ask is this: I would take Mark's question and ask it bigger. Now, of course, this is only hypothetical, but this is also you testing your idea, going, ultimately, what would it look like if other people were practicing that same discomfort that you are practicing to be more connected? What do you think it would do in societies, communities, maybe families, maybe to other individuals? Like, I don't know, give me a kind of a grip on impact. Yeah.
It kind of feels like you're asking the question, like, if my idea came to massive successful fruition, how would the world be different? Might be another way to
maybe, or maybe just how, if more people did it, or I'm not expecting not every even good idea in the world does everybody cling on to, but definitely
what's the
there's
impact?
enough to make. Yeah. What's the impact?
I'm having a moment here. I'm like, all throughout this time we've been together, I just sort of have like something at the ready. And right now I feel a little bit slower, like I'm slowing down. I'm actually legitimately considering. I mean, the first thought that comes to my head is it's easier for me to talk about how it's changed me, and I guess I think that matters because I don't believe my brain or consciousness works all that radically different than other humans, and so while people's flavors might be different, like maybe they choose some other thing where they embrace some discomfort, I do think, so there's the embracing the discomfort piece, or there's this idea of like get rid of the abstractions and like get in and eat the apple, that kind of thing, that they're going to have their own similar quality of waking up and appreciation that I did. It won't be exactly, because it's maybe their vehicle's a little different. So it's hard. It's hard for me to do it. It's easier for me to just go, I think I'm a normal person basically, and this is how it changed my life. So I think it's probably going to have a somewhat similar impact,
You are a normal person, Chad, I would say, with creative, like you do things beyond what a normal person does, but I mean that in a really awesome way. I definitely think you push yourself more, but that's cool. Like, I think you're right.
But I mean, like my brain is structured similarly. I have similar human wants and needs. I'm not a sociopath. Like all those things are right. I'm normal in that way, right?
I wasn't saying you're a creative sociopath or anything like that. I agree with you. But here's where I think the magic lies in your idea. So that's why I wanted to tell you that I think you're somebody that practices a little bit more than the normal person, and that's okay. I think if you think about some of the things that you said, and you said the magic was in it being hard, but not impossible. And I think
it is for me. I can't 100% say that's going to be for everybody, right?
But that's a thing that changes with each person. So I feel like that is something that could work. I feel like that is something that could be pretty universal, because something that, I mean, think about it. I mean, I'm thinking about aging parents and stuff like that. That it's hard for them to bend over and pick something up on the ground. So when you talk about hard, not impossible, to a 20, 30, 40, 50-year-old, pick something up, no problem. Right. But I think the magic was in that. I love that. To me, that was like the heart of your idea, is that if you do something that's hard, but not impossible, you've moved from comfort to discomfort. I proactively moved from, comfort to discomfort. And in that you find connection, you find awareness, you feel like, I mean, I'm summarizing back to you all the things that you said to us today.
My whole system becomes more vital as well. Like my capacity has increased massively to handle input, to just take care of myself in terms of a survival scenario. I've had a tremendous boost in confidence just knowing I could do it, right? Like
totally.
not just the building of the place, but all of the producing of the videos. Like I was terrified. I mean, this is something I haven't talked about much, but that was a huge fear for me, to put myself out there as, like, I call it like the tip of the spear on a creative project. I'd never really, anytime I'd ever done something creative, I was always like supporting, here, this is your project, let me help you, but now it's my vision, it's my idea. And it was a part of it was terrifying. And so I had to do all this hard manual labor and do this art project where I was like, people might hate this. I'm really scared, and that was, so it was like multiple levels of challenge there for sure. And I grew in both of those ways. Now I actually have that. I guess I would say that goes to the capacity thing. Now I believe in myself, sort of like I believe I can produce this kind of art or produce something that people could find meaningful. I feel fortunate to have gotten feedback on my writing, on my Instagram posts, and on my videos that it had some positive impact, all three of them. So that was really like this amazing gift that I got for having some level of courage to put myself out there a little more, as people have shared with me that in some way in all those mediums, they felt some impact.
And I can totally relate to that, Chad, because I've been following you as well. And so to be able to see the whole range of what you've been doing, I feel like I've got an inside view to that, and I get that 100%. But if we're talking, and Mark, I don't know, I have something to ask you, Mark, because I like, you know how we're always trying to like come up with concepts or a way to like, you want people to go through door number one, right? You want them to just come through the door of your idea. And I wrote something down that I thought might be in that realm of like, you know, find your hard, not impossible, to practice, you know, proactive discomfort. I feel like that's the range of what is a really good idea. I mean, I can, you know, the toilet thing scared me, Chad, I have to be honest. Like it really did.
Yeah.
And I mean, my son builds tiny homes too. So I get it. Like he's built a composted toilet, and like, you know, I feel closer than probably a lot of other people to that in some ways, but
I know you can do it. Like I totally get, you might not want to, or it might be scary, but like, I 100% believe you could take the actions and pull it off.
Yeah, I probably could, which then does feel like it does something inside of me, right? And I think that's the thing you want to get in people is, what is that? What's the hard, not impossible? And there's probably different areas. Right. What about the person?
Well, hang on just one sec, because I want to slow this down a little bit, and we can tie that into the way back in the beginning, we were talking about this whole idea of the relational meditation piece. And this is actually, we can describe it a little bit right here, which is that there's already something happening, right? In other words, we can just slow down and zoom in on what's happening for you. Just as you considered the idea of doing that, like what came up, there's already movement, right? Like you haven't taken a physical action at all, but there's already something shifting in you.
Oh, totally.
Right?
Oh.
Yeah.
That's awesome, Chad. See, that's what I was getting at. Yeah. That's so awesome.
Yep.
I think, you know, what about the person, for instance, this could be really valuable in so many areas. You did it in your living, in the way that you live, right? In the way that you have a home, in the way that you,
right.
But what about the person that's having, you know, health conditions, and there's people that maybe eat too much meat or fat or sugar or something like that. And then they find that as their hard, but not, you know, not impossible. Right. And so I feel like your idea could have an array of so many different possibilities. And
agreed. I feel like I need to develop it more. There's a place you're pointing at, something where I've developed so much confidence, like I was saying before, in producing the art and doing these things. And that what we're on right now is like, this feels like, yes, that's the meaning that the vehicle is meant to deliver. And I haven't yet developed the full confidence that I can pull that off yet. That's in process. You know what I mean? I don't feel like I can't do it, but there's this part of me that feels
it's hard, but not impossible, right?
Yeah, exactly. It is. It's certainly in my challenge zone. Yeah. Which feels good. I mean, it's one of the reasons I was excited to talk to you guys, because I've trusted that we would get to exactly this place where I was feeling challenged as to how I could bring this vision in the world in a way that would impact people's lives, which is what I want to do. I mean, I'm glad I'm out there in the woods, but like, if I'm honest, what I really want to do is help to make people's, like, I want to make an impact in the world, right? I can't control that, but I have this hope that whatever art I produce or whatever work that I do, that somebody comes along and goes, that meant something to me. Like, I became a better person because I got an idea from you. I watched something and then I got the confidence that I could do it. I mean, I think about my own experiences having that same thing with other people, you know, like that. It was one of the biggest things that got me to step out. This actually feels really important. So probably the final fulcrum that got me to say, I'm going to do this art project, even though it scares me, is when I realized how much other people taking the same risk have benefited me. You understand what I'm saying? Like, these other people, they had the courage to share their vision, and I was impacted, and it changed my life. I don't want to hold back an expression that could have a similar impact on somebody else's life. It was when I realized that, I was like, I got to do this. You know what I mean? That was the final straw.
Well, Chad, I got to tell you, I like Cathey, got really uncomfortable with the thought of, you know, creating my own sewage system in my
Brooklyn, New York.
That would be more challenging for sure.
Right? But I will say this, as far as what you just said a few moments ago, You changed me.
Hmm.
And you probably changed Cathey, and you probably changed anybody who listened, because even though I'm not ready to give up the toilet in my home,
Hmm.
you've got me thinking about what I can do. And
Right.
in that has been the impact towards being more vital, being more confident, being more appreciative, being
Right.
more resourceful,
Right.
right? I don't imagine that you're going to live in Maine, your yome, for the rest of your life, right? I don't imagine
Probably
it.
not. Probably not.
Right? But when this experiment is over, you will come away a different person.
Yep.
And you have impacted myself today. I'm going to speak personally, as you've done today.
Mm.
You've impacted me personally by getting me to think about the hard not being possible, right?
Right.
You got me to think about the proactive discomfort, about that challenge zone, about, you know, having this desire to be comfortable, but realizing that there's a certain peak in comfort
Yep.
where things start to turn around,
Go downhill. Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
before comfort takes us downhill, why don't we challenge ourselves, proactively make ourselves discomfortable? That's not a word. We're gonna go with it.
I love it though. I love where you're going with it, Marc.
So I just want to share with you the impact
Right.
that you're already having in this conversation, right? That's how it's changed me. So
Totally.
if we
Me
could
too.
begin to wrap this conversation, my question would be, how has this conversation changed you or evolved you or developed your idea to that next level?
Right. Well, right now what's living in me is I feel like there's a distillation happening, which is, and I've been searching for this as we've been in this last section of the conversation, some way to be a little bit more succinct with what we're talking about. And it's something like, don't forget that your soul craves vitality, not comfort. Something along those lines. Like, remember that as a human being, what you really want is to feel fully alive. Don't confuse that with being comfortable. I mean, it might involve some comfort, but it's not what you're on the planet for, probably, you know? Stay on target. Stay on target.
I like that. Crave vitality, not comfort.
Not comfort.
I know.
It's what your soul wants or something. It's what my soul wants, right? When I've tuned back in. Yeah.
Nice. Well, listen, Chad, this has been awesome. I would love, I don't know if we're going to come visit you at your home in Maine.
I would love that.
I'm going to. I want to.
You can poop in my compost bucket. They're waiting for you.
That's going to be my test. I'm going to poop in Chad's compost toilet first before I create my own.
We'll call it a trial run.
Yes.
Geez. On that note, if anybody wants to find out about you, follow you more as you continue through this experiment, learn about relational meditation, how do people find out about you and learn more about you?
Yeah, sure. And the easiest way is I made a website for this whole adventure. So it's lifetolive.one. So lifetolive.one. And you can go there and you can scroll to the bottom of any page and there's links to social media and various stuff. You can follow. I've got a YouTube channel where I produce occasional videos. I've got Instagram where, as Cathey knows, I'm firing stuff off almost every day. And I write some blog posts too that are probably a bit more on the philosophical side. And you can find all links to all that stuff at lifetolive.one.
Thank you, Chad. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing everything. Thank you for dropping this idea on us and giving us the opportunity to talk with you about it and help you to take it to that next level and get some more people to be proactively discomfortable. Again,
I love it. Discomfortable could be his thing. That could be the.
It does. It wakes you up. Like what?
That could be the idea because you're listening and you're like discomfortable. Practice discomfortable.
Thank you guys for inviting me. It was so much fun. Yeah.
You're welcome. And listen, to anybody else who's out there watching, Cathey and I would be happy to make up new words for you. So make sure you go to our website, It's About to Go Down show. Check out our YouTube channel for It's About to Go Down. We'd love to have you. We'd love to talk to you. Or if you know anybody else who you think would have a great time having a conversation with us. So until the next time, thank you for joining us, and join us again for It's About to Go Down.